As Wizards of the Coast is continuing along with development for 1D&D, we have finally received the second Unearthed Arcana, this time entitled Expert Classes. This UA highlights a fairly distinct shift in direction for how the team is looking at classes, progression, balance, and everything in between. If you don't know what 1D&D is, check out my last video. In this video, I'll be exploring the reimagined base classes presented in this Unearthed Arcana. I will not be examining the subclasses, feats, or the rules glossary also provided. I will leave that to a different video. Leave a comment below letting me know which changes you like or which you don't, and which classes you're most excited to see in the future, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. It should be noted that in this context, the term expert classes, used to denote the Bard, Ranger, Rogue, and Artificer, is not to be confused with prestige classes from earlier editions, or that they have some kind of added complexity to their systems. But rather, it is simply to convey that these four classes are thematically considered experts in their particular fields. This is much more of a flavor grouping than anything else. In fact, all 13 classes have now been grouped into similar chunks to better represent their relative skills and to make creating a classical balanced party that much easier. The new groupings are as follows. Expert classes have been divided into Bard, Ranger, Rogue, and Artificer. Mages are Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. Priests are Cleric, Druid, and Paladin, and Warriors are Barbarians, Fighters, and Monks. These groupings will also be used to denote who can take which feats, or even certain magical items. While this may seem like an insignificant addition on the face of it, it is actually a strong step toward ensuring class parity and making it easier for newer players to get a quick understanding of the general attributes of each class. The first thing that stands out when looking at the revised Bard class table is that Bards are now prepared casters, meaning they, like Clerics and Druids of the past, have access to their entire spell list and can rotate spells much more freely, rather than relying on a specific number of spells known as determined by their Charisma modifier. Something I was not expecting and seems like a fairly massive change is that under these rules, you must prepare a number of spells equal to the spell slots at each level. For example, under the new rules, a 5th level Bard must have 4 1st level spells, 3 2nd level spells, and 2 3rd level spells prepared. Unlike previous rules for prepared casters, spells could be prepared in any combination, whereas based on this wording, that does not seem possible anymore. Using the example above, if Bards were prepared casters, under the 2014 rules, if they wanted to, they could have exclusively 1st level spells prepared. The change in these rules can seriously limit flexibility and differentiation of the class moving forward. Additionally, in terms of spellcasting, Bards can now only prepare spells from the Divination, Enchantment, Illusion, and Transmutation schools, and only ones which appear on the new Arcane spell list. Bard spellcasting has received a massive overhaul, where it seems to have both gained and lost in various respects. The impacts of this do remain to be seen, and a lot of testing will still need to be done, but this is certainly much more of a change than I was expecting. Moving on from spellcasting, the hallmark Bard feature, Bardock Inspiration, has also received significant changes. Whereas previously you would need to front load your inspiration dice, that is to offer it to a character before you knew if they actually needed it or not, that is no longer the case. Inspiration can now only be given in 2 circumstances. When a creature within 60 feet of you that you can see or hear fails a d20 test, or if they take damage. Using it in either case requires the Bard to also use their reaction. However, the second use case is interesting as it allows for a reactionary heal. When using inspiration after someone has taken damage, that character can regain hit points equal to the number rolled. Additionally, the quantity of inspiration dice allotted is now tied to proficiency bonus rather than the charisma modifier. I think all of these changes are positive ones, and ones that will result in Bardic Inspiration seeing much more use and with dramatically increased versatility. Bards now receive their expertise feat at 2nd and 9th level rather than 3rd and 10th, though Jack of all trades has been moved from 2 all the way back to 5th level. Fonts of Inspiration has moved from 5th to 7th level, and finally, Counter Charm is gone. Song of Rest has also received quite an overhaul. Not only has it been renamed to Song of Restoration, but it now grants additional spells that do not count against the total number of spells that you can prepare. And it also no longer grants additional healing when a character uses their hit dice. Magical Secrets remains fundamentally the same, except that you get a total of 4 spells instead of 6 as previously. Lastly, all former class capstones have been moved from 20th level down to 18th, and have been modified. Reaching 20th level now grants one of the epic boons from the Dungeon Master's Guide that only players who kept going beyond 20th level would have ever seen. All of this brings us to the reimagined Bard Capstone feature, which, while admittedly better, is still objectively terrible. Now, when you roll initiative, you regain 2 expended uses of Bardock Inspiration, rather than needing to have 0 and then only gaining 1. This, to me, is a very disappointing thing to see. Granted, most people never really get this high of a level anyway, but I remember reading through these class descriptions the first time, and each time you get to the capstone and being excited about whatever insanity my top level character could have, even though I'm never going to reach it, and this just does not satisfy that fantasy. It should be an epic and aspirational goal, and this just makes me want to multiclass out of Bard. Overall, outside of the capstone, I actually really like the changes to the Bard class. I think that it genuinely embraces the roundedness of the class, but provides some limitations to not simply make it amazing at everything. On paper, I love the changes to Bard spellcasting, but it certainly will take some play to see how it works out. The Ranger was unquestionably the least exciting class from the 2014 Player's Handbook. It had features dedicated to some of the most omitted parts of the game, and many other features felt bland and uninspired. This time though, the Ranger has truly an identity of its own. Much like the Bard, the most immediate change to spot right away is that Rangers are now also prepared casters, which honestly is something they always should have been. They pick their spells from the primal spell list, and can be from any school of magic with the exception of evocation. Additionally though, they also get access to spellcasting at first level rather than second, and probably more importantly, now have access to cantrips, and they can now use spellcasting focuses in the form of a druid focus. I cannot emphasize how amazing of a change these are, and the positive impact that they will have on the Ranger experience as a whole. Also at first level, Favored Enemy has been completely changed. It now grants Hunter's Mark as a spell that does not count against the total number of spells that you can prepare, and you do not need to maintain concentration on it. Something I'm sure most people constantly forgot anyway, at least I know I always do. And if that wasn't enough on its own, Rangers are finally given the Expertise feature, not once, but twice at both 1st and 9th level. The Natural Explorer feat is gone, as is Primeval Awareness, and many other features have been heavily bolstered to really help the Ranger feel more useful in a broader variety of applications. The former 8th level Land Stride feature, which admittedly had some usefulness, has been reimagined as the 7th level feature Roving, which, to me at least, feels much more organic and much more broadly useful. Roving grants an additional 10 feet of movement speed, provided that you aren't wearing heavy armor, and also grants both a climb and swim speed now equal to your movement speed. The questionably useful feature Hide in Plain Sight has also been revamped into the new 13th level feature Nature's Veil. This allows a Ranger as a bonus action to expend a spell slot to become invisible until the end of their next turn by channeling the spirits of nature. The new 11th level feature, Tireless, allows a Ranger to grant themselves temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus their proficiency bonus whenever they finish a short or long rest, and to also reduce the level of exhaustion by 1 whenever they finish a short rest. Exhaustion has also received a change in this UA, though that's not something I will be going over in this video. Feral Senses has moved from 18th to 15th level and has been greatly streamlined to say that you simply gain blind sight to 30 feet, which is nearly the same thing that it did before, but it is substantially easier to parse. Much like the Bard, the Ranger capstone is still a bit disappointing. At 18th level, Foe Slayer now turns the damage from Hunter's Mark from 1d6 to 1d10. While the extra damage is likely to be lower than the previous version of the feature, at least it does not have the limitation of only working against your specific favored enemy. I am thrilled with the changes to the Ranger class. This is the class that the Ranger always should have been. It turns it from some kind of man versus wild survivalist into someone adept and in tune with nature and who can use it to exploit the weaknesses of their foes. Unlike both the Bard and the Ranger, at first glance there does not appear to be that much that has changed with the Rogue class. The Rogue has largely been in a good place since the 2014 Player's Handbook, and these changes certainly feel much more iterative than a true reinvention like the previous two. Sneak Attack has not changed, other than to specify that it requires the user to take the attack action and to hit with an attack roll, which could have some niche applications, I suppose. Additionally, the wording and formatting of the section has been improved to make it a little bit easier to read and understand. Thieves' Cant now provides an additional language on top of being able to read Thieves' Cant, but Cunning Action remains unchanged, as does Uncanny Dodge, though some wording clarifications have also been provided. Expertise has moved from 6th to 7th level, but otherwise remains the same. Evasion has moved from 7th to 9th level, but again, otherwise remains the same. Reliable Talent has been expanded to allow it to be used with tool proficiencies though, as well as with skill checks. The previous 14th level Blind Sense feature is gone, and instead 13th level now grants a new feature called Subtle Strikes. This grants the rogue advantage on any attack roll that targets a creature within 5 feet of at least one of your allies that isn't incapacitated. This feature effectively nullifies the portion of sneak attack which says it does not work if you have disadvantage, as advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out. Provided an ally is near your target, you will always have at the very least a straight roll. Slippery Mind now grants proficiency in both Wisdom and Charisma saving throws, and Elusive has moved from 18th to 17th level but otherwise remains the same. The Rogue Capstone Stroke of Luck has both moved to 18th level and has received an upgrade. It can now be used to turn a roll of a failed d20 test into a 20. This expands the use of the ability to include saving throws in addition to attack rolls and ability checks. As mentioned earlier, the rogue changes feel much more minor and iterative than anything else. I am happy to see that some of these subtle improvements have been made, but they are certainly not game-changing in any dramatic way. I think the overall changes made to the classes are a significant improvement. The designers are clearly moving toward a design philosophy that embraces clarity and ease of use, but are doing so in a way that does not remove complexity or depth. The change to Bard and Ranger now being prepared casters, but also limiting the combinations of prepared spells, is a very interesting change that I am looking forward to seeing some feedback on. I'm excited to play with these new rules, and I would love to hear everyone's opinion on these changes. Leave a comment below and let me know what changes you like, which ones you don't like, and what classes you're looking forward to seeing in the future.